In the quiet town of Gary, Indiana, there stood a once grand home known as the Wyrick House. It was built in the early 1900s, but over the decades it fell into disrepair. Despite its dilapidated state, the house was a local landmark, whispered about with a mix of curiosity and fear. The true story behind the house began in the 1960s when a young family, the Rogers, moved in. The Rogers were excited to restore the old house to its former glory, but their dreams quickly soured. Strange occurrences began almost immediately. The first unsettling event happened one night when Mr. Rogers heard what sounded like footsteps on the upper floors. He was alone in the house, and when he investigated, he found nothing. The noises continued for weeks, and sometimes they came with the distinct sound of doors creaking open and shut. Then things escalated. Mrs. Rogers, while preparing dinner, felt an icy hand brush against her neck. She spun around, expecting to see one of her children playing a prank, but the kitchen was empty. Her anxiety grew when she started finding objects rearranged in strange patterns. A chair that had been in one corner would inexplicably end up in another. The Rogers children were not spared either. Their nightmares became more frequent, filled with visions of shadowy figures and voices whispering in the dark. One night, the youngest child, Tommy, awoke to see a dark figure standing by his bed. He screamed, but when his parents rushed in, there was no sign of anyone. As the months wore on, the disturbances became more malevolent. Mr. Rogers, desperate for answers, sought the help of a local historian who had studied the house's history. The historian uncovered a chilling detail. In the 1920s, the house had been the site of a grisly event. During that time, a wealthy businessman named Edward Wyrick had lived there with his family. Wyrick was a ruthless man with a dark reputation. It was rumored that he had been involved in a series of illicit activities, and that he had used the house as a place to conduct his nefarious dealings. One of the rumors suggested that a terrible betrayal had led to a violent confrontation within its walls, and Wyrick had vanished without a trace. Though the details were murky, it was said that his ghost, and perhaps those of his victims, had never left the house. Determined to free their home from whatever haunted it, the Rogers contacted a paranormal investigation team. The team set up their equipment and conducted an extensive investigation. Their recordings captured eerie whispers, disembodied footsteps, and even a chilling EVP, electronic voice phenomenon, of a voice saying, "Get out." The final straw came when the Rogers dog, usually calm and friendly, began barking furiously at an empty corner of the basement. The family decided it was time to leave. They abandoned the house, and it stood empty once more, its windows dark and its doors creaking ominously in the wind. Years later, the Wyrick house was purchased by a new family, but they too reported strange happenings. Flickering lights, cold spots, and an overwhelming feeling of being watched. Despite the efforts of renovators and caretakers, the house remained an enigma, its dark history a constant reminder of the ghosts, both literal and metaphorical, that lurk within its walls. To this day, the Wyrick house remains a local legend, a haunting reminder of how the past can cast long, dark shadows over the present. Years after the Rogers left, the Wyrick house stood vacant, its reputation preceding it. Local legends about the house grew, weaving tales of supernatural phenomena and unexplainable events. It was an ominous landmark, avoided by many but inevitably attracting thrill-seekers and amateur ghost hunters. In the late 1980s, a young and ambitious journalist named Emily Carter was drawn to the house by its dark history. Emily had made a name for herself writing about unsolved mysteries and haunted locations. Intrigued by the tales of the Wyrick house, she decided it was the perfect subject for her next investigative piece. She rented the property, determined to uncover the truth behind the house's sinister reputation. From the moment Emily stepped into the house, she felt an unsettling presence. The air was thick with an inexplicable chill, and every room seemed to whisper secrets of the past. She began her investigation with the same enthusiasm and skepticism she applied to all her stories, setting up cameras and recording equipment throughout the house. The first few nights were relatively quiet, but then the phenomena started again. Emily captured disembodied voices on her recordings, and her cameras recorded strange, shadowy figures moving through the halls. Objects shifted on their own, and the temperature in certain rooms plummeted inexplicably. One night, while reviewing her footage, Emily noticed something disturbing. In the basement, a shadow seemed to materialize and linger near an old, rotting bookcase. As she watched, the shadow appeared to coalesce into a recognizable form. A man in period clothing, his face obscured but his posture menacing. Emily's heart raced, but her curiosity drove her to investigate further. Armed with a flashlight and her camera, Emily descended into the basement. The space was musty and cluttered, with remnants of the past scattered among the debris. She approached the bookcase and found an old, hidden compartment behind it. Inside, she discovered a faded ledger, its pages filled with detailed records of illicit transactions and unsettling entries about people who had disappeared. One entry caught her eye. It detailed a violent incident involving Edward Wyrick, his associates, and a mysterious woman. The woman's name was scribbled in a hasty scrawl, Lila. The ledger mentioned that she had been a confidant of Wyrick, but had been betrayed and killed. Emily's research led her to discover that Lila had been a young woman involved in the local community, whose disappearance had never been solved. Driven by a sense of urgency, Emily attempted to delve deeper into Lila's story. She contacted local historians and old-timers in the town who might remember details about Lila or Wyrick. Through these conversations, she pieced together a horrifying narrative. Lila had been a victim of a ruthless power struggle, used as a pawn in Wyrick's dark schemes. Her ghost, along with those of Wyrick's victims, were believed to haunt the house, seeking justice or revenge. One stormy night, Emily decided to conduct a final, thorough investigation of the house. As lightning flashed and thunder roared outside, she felt an intense, malevolent presence. In the dim light of her flashlight, she saw the figure of a woman, the same shadowy form from her footage, standing at the top of the stairs. It was Lila, her face a mix of anguish and anger. Emily's equipment went haywire as she approached the apparition. The house seemed to come alive with whispers and moans. The temperature dropped drastically, and the house shook with what felt like the echoes of a long-buried tragedy. She felt a sudden, icy grip around her arm and heard a voice, cold and desperate, pleading for her help. Determined to honor the spirit's plea, Emily called the local authorities and historians, revealing her findings and urging them to investigate further. They conducted a thorough search and eventually confirmed that Lila's remains had been buried on the property, never properly memorialized. With this new evidence, the Wyrick House was finally given the attention it needed. The remains were respectfully moved, and a small memorial was erected on the property to honor Lila and the others. The haunting phenomena in the house began to subside, and the Wyrick House, while still an enigmatic relic of the past, became a symbol of a tragic story brought to light. Emily's investigation not only brought closure to the spirits of the Wyrick House, but also cemented her reputation as a journalist who had dared to confront the darkest corners of history. The house, once a place of terror, became a reminder of the importance of remembering and respecting those lost to history's shadows. And though the house no longer echoed with the same haunting cries, the legend of the Wyrick House lived on, a testament to the lingering presence of the past and the courage needed to face it. With the house's dark history brought to light and the memorial erected for Lila and the others, the Wyrick House seemed to finally settle into a period of uneasy calm. Emily Carter's investigation had turned the house from a feared relic into a symbol of justice for the forgotten. However, even as the years passed, the Wyrick House remained an enigmatic presence in Gary. Stories of the house persisted, whispered among locals and curious visitors. Some said that while the most intense hauntings had subsided, the house still harbored an unsettling atmosphere. Occasional sightings of strange lights and unexplained noises kept its legend alive. In the early 2000s, a new owner, Laura Simmons, purchased the property with the intention of restoring it to its former glory and turning it into a historical museum. Laura, an enthusiastic historian, was aware of the house's past but was determined to preserve its legacy. She hoped that by turning it into a museum, She could offer visitors a glimpse into its history while paying homage to those who had suffered there. Laura's efforts were met with mixed reactions. While many supported her preservation project, others were wary of the house's reputation. Despite this, she pressed on, dedicating herself to creating an informative and respectful space. During the restoration, Laura and her team uncovered more evidence of the house's tumultuous past. Behind old walls and under floorboards, they found hidden compartments and remnants from Wyrick's time. Old letters, photographs, and personal belongings. Each discovery added depth to the house's story, revealing the complex lives of those who had once walked its halls. One night, as Laura was working late in the house to prepare for its grand opening, she felt an overwhelming sense of déjà vu. The air was heavy with an inexplicable tension, and she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. She brushed it off as stress from the long hours, but the sensation persisted. A few days before the museum was set to open, Laura received an anonymous letter slipped under the door. The letter was scrawled in a shaky hand and warned her, "You don't know what you're dealing with. The past is not done with the Wyrick House." Uneasy but undeterred, Laura continued her preparations. The grand opening was a success, with visitors marveling at the house's historical artifacts and exhibits. However, the house's dark reputation continued to attract ghost hunters and paranormal enthusiasts. One night, a renowned paranormal investigation team, led by a man named Derek Hawkins, conducted a special investigation at the Wyrick House. They set up their equipment throughout the house, capturing EVP recordings and using infrared cameras. They were intrigued by the house's history and hoped to shed more light on its lingering mysteries. As the investigation progressed, strange phenomena began anew. Cameras captured fleeting glimpses of shadowy figures, and EVP recordings picked up chilling voices and whispers. During a live-streamed session, a cold breeze swept through the room, causing the temperature to drop dramatically. Viewers reported seeing a ghostly figure of a man in old-fashioned clothes appearing behind Derek. Derek and his team focused their efforts on the basement, where the activity had been most intense. They conducted a séance, hoping to communicate with any lingering spirits. The room grew colder as they called out to Edward Wyrick, Lila, and the other spirits. The atmosphere became charged with a palpable sense of urgency. Suddenly, the equipment began to malfunction, and the lights flickered erratically. Amidst the chaos, Derek felt a powerful presence. The team's EVP recorder captured a clear, distressed voice saying, "Help us! The cycle must end." It was a plea that seemed to resonate with the house's tragic history. Derek's team left the house that night with a renewed sense of urgency. They believed that the spirits were trying to convey a message, and that there was unfinished business linked to the house's dark past. They reached out to historians and local experts, proposing a collaborative effort to delve deeper into the house's history and provide the spirits with the resolution they sought. Laura, now more committed than ever, joined forces with the paranormal team. Together, they undertook a comprehensive historical research project, piecing together the full story of the Wyrick House. They discovered that there had been an ongoing cycle of betrayal and violence in the house, tied to the criminal activities and power struggles of Wyrick and his associates. With this knowledge, they organized a memorial service to honor not just Lila, but all the victims who had suffered due to Wyrick's actions. The service included a ritual to acknowledge and lay to rest the spirits who had been trapped in the house for so long. The memorial was held on a cool autumn evening, with candles flickering in the soft breeze and the murmurs of prayers and invocations filling the air. As the service concluded, many reported a profound sense of peace and calm settling over the house. The temperature normalized, and the oppressive atmosphere seemed to lift. In the years that followed, the Wyrick House continued to be a site of historical interest, its past no longer a source of fear, but a testament to the resilience of those who had endured its darkest days. The stories of the house were now told with a sense of reverence, honoring the lives lost and the courage of those who sought to bring closure to a painful chapter in history. The Wyrick House, with its rich and tumultuous past, became a symbol of the enduring quest for truth and justice, and its legacy served as a reminder of the importance of facing even the darkest shadows of history with compassion and determination. With the memorial service bringing a sense of closure to many, the Wyrick House entered a new era. Laura Simmons and Derek Hawkins, along with their teams, had worked tirelessly to honor the spirits and restore the house's reputation. The house became a revered historical site, and visitors came to learn about its rich, albeit dark, history. However, just as the house seemed to settle into its role as a museum, new and unsettling events began to unfold. In early 2010, a new curator named Daniel Rhodes took over the management of the museum. Daniel was passionate about history and eager to expand the house's exhibits. He began researching additional artifacts and stories related to the house, hoping to create a more comprehensive historical experience for visitors. One evening, while exploring the attic, a part of the house that had been largely untouched, Daniel stumbled upon an old, dust-covered trunk. The trunk was locked, but with some effort he managed to pry it open. Inside, he found a collection of documents, old photographs, and a peculiar handwritten diary. The diary, bound in worn leather, appeared to belong to Edward Wyrick himself. Its pages were filled with cryptic entries, written in a hasty scrawl. As Daniel read through the diary, he discovered unsettling accounts of paranoia, deceit, and threats. Wyrick seemed obsessed with the idea that someone was plotting against him, leading him to commit increasingly desperate acts. One entry stood out, *, they are closing in. Lila's death was only the beginning. If I am to survive, I must make arrangements. The secrets of this house must remain buried. They cannot find the truth. It must be hidden. *. Daniel was intrigued and disturbed by the diary's content. It suggested that Wyrick had been hiding something significant, something beyond what had already been uncovered. His curiosity led him to investigate further. He reached out to historical societies and experts, seeking any additional information about the house and Wyrick's activities. Through this research, Daniel discovered that Wyrick had been involved in a secretive organization known as the Covenant of the Veil. This shadowy group was rumored to practice occult rituals and was believed to have ties to some of the town's most influential figures. Determined to get to the bottom of the mystery, Daniel organized a series of late-night investigations in the house. He and a small team of historians and paranormal experts began to explore hidden corners of the property, looking for clues that might reveal the true nature of Wyrick's activities. During one of these investigations, Daniel and his team focused on the basement, where they had previously encountered significant paranormal activity. They found a hidden compartment behind a false wall. Inside, they discovered a set of old, ornate boxes and a collection of arcane symbols etched into the walls. One box contained what appeared to be ceremonial robes and strange artifacts. Another box held a collection of old, handwritten texts, which seemed to be part of occult rituals. The team's EVP recordings picked up disturbing whispers and chanting, which grew more intense as they uncovered these items. In the midst of their investigation, Daniel experienced an alarming vision. He saw Edward Wyrick standing in the basement, surrounded by shadowy figures, performing a dark ritual. The vision was so vivid and terrifying that Daniel felt a chilling weight lift off his shoulders once the vision dissipated. Realizing that they were dealing with something far more sinister than anticipated, Daniel consulted experts in occult history and paranormal phenomena. They explained that Wyrick's involvement in occult practices might have left a lingering imprint on the house, possibly explaining the persistent, unexplained activities. The experts advised a thorough cleansing of the house to dispel any residual negative energies. They performed a series of rituals and ceremonies designed to purify the space and lay to rest any lingering malevolent forces. The cleansing rituals were intense, involving chants, prayers, and the burning of sacred herbs. The atmosphere in the house shifted, and many reported a profound sense of relief and calm. The rituals seemed to have a tangible effect, reducing the frequency of paranormal occurrences. As time went on, the Wyrick House became a place of quiet reflection and education. The expanded exhibits now included information about Wyrick's occult practices and the history of the Covenant of the Veil, providing visitors with a fuller understanding of the house's dark legacy. Daniel Rhodes continued to manage the museum with great care, ensuring that the house's history was told with respect and accuracy. The Wyrick House, once a symbol of fear and mystery, now stood as a monument to the complexities of human nature and the enduring quest for truth. The spirits, once restless and tormented, seemed to find peace. The house's atmosphere became one of calm contemplation rather than fear, and it continued to attract visitors eager to learn about its rich and multifaceted history. Though the Wyrick House's story had taken many dark turns, it ultimately served as a reminder of the power of history, the importance of confronting the past, and the enduring strength of the human spirit to overcome even the darkest shadows.